This is the Blaisin podcast, amplifying disability perspective, one story at a time. Today is Tuesday, March 11th. I'm Blaze Bryant. What goes with Tuesday here on the show? Well, trivia. And because March is Cerebral Palsy Awareness Month, I wanted to chat with someone who has firsthand experience with CP, and we'll learn and we'll chat about life and all that good stuff. So joining me is a very good friend of mine, Cara Liebowitz. She is in Brooklyn and an awesome disability rights advocate. Cara, always good to catch up with you. Thanks a million for giving me a few minutes here on the show. Really appreciate it.
Of course. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So, how are things in the life of Cara Liebowitz? And go.
Well, as you said, I live in Brooklyn with my wonderful roommate who also has CP, which leads to a lot of hilarious moments, by the way. And our cat, who has one eye, he's also disabled. His name is Odin. We love him very much. I am currently out of work, but looking for work. So full-time, part-time, contract work. I'm primarily a disability rights advocate. I have experience in fundraising, development, advocacy work. I also do a lot of writing on the side. I'm also a sensitivity reader for disability representation in literature. So if you want to check out my skill set and maybe hire me for something, you can go to my website at caraliebowitz.com. That's Caraliebowitz.com. Or you can email me directly at caraliebowitz@gmail.com.
Phenomenal. And I will make sure to link your episode here in the show notes as well. And we'll plug it at the end of the episode too. So as I said in the intro, and you pointed it out, you have CP, your roommate has CP. Give us the basic overview of what cerebral palsy is.
So CP is the, fun fact, most common motor disability in childhood. It results from damage to the brain before, during, or shortly after birth. And it's really a catch-all term for a number of movement disorders that result from that neurological damage. It is non-progressive, which means it doesn't get worse over time, although the wear and tear on your body does add up and does cause some of the effects to get worse over time, but the initial brain injury does not. And though it's typically thought of as a childhood disability, it is the most common motor disability in childhood. Fun fact, kids with CP grow up. I'm 32, going on 33, and I know people with CP that are well into their 70s and 80s. So it's really a lifelong disability, and it primarily affects movement and posture, although there are lots of co-occurring conditions that can go along with it. Learning disabilities are common with CP, intellectual disabilities. And that's a basic overview of what CP is.
And it presents differently in everyone who has it, right?
Yes, it presents differently in everybody who has it, just like any disability. Some people with CP are able to walk. I myself am an ambulatory wheelchair user. Some people with CP can't walk. Some people with CP can talk. Some people with CP can't talk. Some people with CP have significant speech disabilities. Some don't. It's really, if you know one person with CP, you know one person with CP. And I happen to co-run what is, I believe, one of the largest groups on Facebook for people with CP called You Know You Have Cerebral Palsy When. And about 10 years ago, we hosted a meetup in New York City. And being around all of those people who had CP was an incredible experience because it doesn't present the same way in every person. And it's really unique to every person in every situation.
Gotcha. Well, if you're just joining us or if you tuned out a little bit, like I have a tendency to do when I'm listening to stuff, you are listening to the Blaisin podcast, and with me is Cara Liebowitz, who is a person with cerebral palsy. As we're talking Cerebral Palsy Awareness Month, she's an awesome disability rights advocate who is looking for work. So it must be pretty interesting. Your roommate has CP, you have CP, and you have a cat who has one eye.
Yes.
Sounds
like the beginning of a sitcom.
Right. So if you had one story that you could tell, what would it be?
Oh, that's hard. One story about CP, about having CP.
Well, just like one story of you, your roommate, and the cat.
Let's see. It's just funny because this is a fairly new cat for us. We've only had him since February.
Okay.
Early February. Our old cat unfortunately passed away in January.
Oh.
But there's just a lot of fun that goes on in this apartment. And we really support each other. And I always say that's one of the biggest perks of having a roommate who also has CP is that, our abilities are very similar in some ways, but in other ways we really complement each other. I may not be able to open a package that she can, or, she can walk longer distances than I can. It's just, we're very complementary.
Right. That's what makes it work. And your roommate, if I'm remembering correctly, is an author too, right?
She is. She is an author of young adult literature. Her name is Melissa C. She has 2 books out right now. One is called You, Me, and Our Heartstrings, and one is called Love Letters for Joy, and both of them feature protagonists who, like Melissa, have CP. So they're great reads for CP Awareness Month or any month.
Fantastic. Well, that'd be a cool chat to have down the road for sure.
Yeah, I'll definitely talk to her, and we can see if we can make it happen.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. So before we forget why the heck we were here, let's play some trivia.
Yes.
So I've got a few questions, 3 to be specific, on famous people with CP. And if you know anything about them more than I was able to find on the internet, Cara, let me know. Because
I will.
That's why I have guests, to educate me, really, at the end of the day. So the first question that I have for you is, this person with CP starred on Breaking Bad as Walter White. Do you know who that is?
RJ Mitty, who I met. I did actually meet him probably about 10 years ago. And I was pretty starstruck.
So you met RJ Mitty?
I did, briefly, at the Real Abilities Film Festival here in New York.
What was that like?
It was, I didn't get a chance to really talk to him or anything, but it was just really cool to meet him. It's not often we get a celebrity like us.
Oh, for sure. And it's really cool to see, because there are several celebrities with CP that are out there and very open and authentic about it too.
Yes. I've always thought it would be really cool to get a comedy festival going with a whole lineup of comedians with CP, because there seem to be a lot of them. I think our life just sort of lends itself to comedy.
Right. Well, one of those comedians is Josh Blue. I wasn't going to ask about Josh Blue, but I've heard his stuff, some of it, and Yeah, I've heard him talk about having CP, and he's just really darn funny about it.
Yeah, I got to meet him too. When was that? That was a while ago. I got to meet him when I was living in the DC area. I got to go to one of his shows and got to meet him afterwards. And I still have the shirt that I got at his show that he autographed for me.
Oh, that's so cool. Nice.
It was very cool.
Nice. Yeah, I've had the pleasure of meeting a couple of comedians. Lewis Black, who does not have CP. He was here in Albany at the Palace Theater, and I got to meet him right after the show, and I said to him, I go, gee, and it was a great show. I go, gee, Lewis, the lighting around here really sucks. And he just goes, yes. Well, I hope you enjoyed the show. I said, I certainly did. Thank you very. And the other one, now this is a bit more disability focused. Ralphie May, rest in peace, Ralphie May. He did a show when I was a freshman at the College of St. Rose, which is now closed here in Albany. And he did a free show for students, and I went to it, obviously. And another really, really good show. And I got to meet Ralphie right after, and he said to me, he goes, I'm so sorry I did so many visual jokes. Had I known you were going to be here, I wouldn't have done so many. And I said to him, well, Ralphie, do what I can to and open your eyes. And he had the most authentic, genuine belly laugh about that and pulled me in for a bear hug. And Ralphie was a very large man, and hugging him was like hugging a giant teddy bear. I'm not exaggerating.
I love that. That's great.
Yeah. And he did this bit called Smoking Pot with Jesus. And essentially the crux of the bit is he got caught because his eyes were bloodshot from being high. And I said to Ralphie, I go, unlike you, I wouldn't have gotten caught. And he goes, well, why is that? I go, because you can't tell looking at my eyes. So yeah, those are my stories of meeting comedians. But
love that.
Yeah. Although I never got anything autographed because, well, too blind to read it. Anyhow. So the second famous celebrity, that's a dumb statement. Second celebrity with CP has to do with the disability and cute or disabled and cute movement. I'm sure you know who that is.
Kia Brown.
And you are no shock 2 for 2. Yeah, how familiar are you with her?
I'm pretty familiar with her. I've never met her. There's been one or two incidents where we've kind of been in the same place at the same time, but we haven't actually met each other. But I follow her on Twitter, or I guess X it's called now. I still refuse to call it X.
Agree. Yeah, that sounds like an ex boyfriend or girl. I can't do it.
Yeah. but yeah, Kia's great, and she's also an author.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she has a memoir out, I believe, and she also has a young adult book, and I believe she wrote a picture book as well.
Wow. And another author with CP is an Australian woman named Anne MacDonald.
Yes, Anne MacDonald, she passed away a couple years ago, didn't she?
I think you're right. Although what I was reading, I wasn't able to quite figure that out. The article that I am reading that I'll link to in the show notes, because I don't remember the website that I'm looking at. Gosh, that just sounds so stupid. But hey, it's my life. Is CP focused? It's Wonder Tree. That's it. Wonder Tree. That's what I'm looking at. And it lists some famous people with CP. And yeah, I believe you're right. Anne MacDonald was Australian. And
Yeah, I've read the memoir that she co-wrote with her facilitator and longtime friend Rosemary Crosley. Anne MacDonald is often credited as being one of the pioneers of facilitated communication for people without speech.
Yes, that's where I've heard her name, now that you say that, because I was sitting here reading the article. Like, I know I've heard that name. And now that you mention it, it's the facilitated communication for people without speech, which, explain if you can. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but explain a little bit. Just give a basic version, if you can, of how that works.
So facilitated communication, I'm not an expert on it by any means, is when someone without speech is paired with a facilitator who provides some sort of support to them as they are maybe spelling on a letterboard or they're typing their thoughts. A lot of times that can look like physical support, like just gently like holding an arm. Or I think a lot of times, the support kind of fades and the person no longer needs the support. It's a very controversial method, but I believe in it. And I have friends without speech who are very adamant that it works. And I trust them.
Why is it controversial?
It's controversial because people believe that the facilitator is in some way consciously or unconsciously influencing the other person's communications.
Okay. That's interesting, because I was trying to figure out why is it controversial. But while I see the reasoning as to why people may think it's controversial, personally, it just doesn't make sense to me. Why there would be controversy.
I agree. Yeah.
But that's just my own editorializing. So, in no shock, because you're a phenomenal advocate and you have taught disability history. You're 2 for 2. Let's see if you will be 3 for 3. This person with CP founded the Las Vegas Tenors and has performed on Good Morning America a few times. Do you know who I am talking about?
You know what? I do not. And that's surprising to me. I did not think you would stump me.
Okay. Is it Mark Anthony, Mark Giove, or Mark McGuire?
I'm going to say Mark Giove because I'm pretty sure Mark McGuire is a baseball player and Mark Anthony is a singer.
Well, you are 1 for 1, 2 for 2, and 3 for 3. You rocked it.
Well, at least I got it eventually.
Yeah. Mark Giove, he is credited with founding the Las Vegas Tenors, and he's been on Good Morning America, and yeah, he really embraced the power of music with CP. I don't know a lot about his stuff, because I admittedly didn't have a lot of time to research, but and another, I believe he had CP. There was a singer back in the 60s, Joe Cocker, or was it Parkinson's? I'm trying to remember, but I think it was CP. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. I'm guessing you don't, based on the silence.
I know the name. Yeah, I know the name. I don't think he had CP because I think I would have known about it, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. So real quick, Cara, give us some resources that I could point people to learn more about CP.
Sure. Here in the States, there's the Cerebral Palsy Foundation, or Cerebral. There's always debate on if it's pronounced cerebral or cerebral. I grew up pronouncing it cerebral palsy, so that's the pronunciation that I default to. But I know other people who default to cerebral, so I don't really know. But there's the Cerebral Palsy Foundation. They have some really great resources, including they've got some new research and new initiatives into aging with CP and adults with CP, which, like I said, is so important because CP is so often just thought of as a childhood disability. There's, like I said, if you have CP and you're listening to this, and you're not already in the You Have Cerebral Palsy When Facebook group, come on over. We'd love to have you. Yeah. In the UK, I believe it's called UpCP. Yeah, there's a bunch of different organizations out there, and I'm really excited to see CP kind of gaining a foothold and more organizations dedicated to CP popping up and more people with CP networking and finding each other.
Oh, for sure. And how can we, and when I say we, I mean people who do not have CP, how can we be allies and support people with CP?
So people who do not have CP can be allies just in the same way you're allies to any other person with a disability. Recognize the one size doesn't fit all. Have an open mind, and, recognize that you might need to make some accommodations sometimes. For
sure. Well, Cara, this has been phenomenal, as it always is when we chat, because I was saying to Cara before we started taping that, because we used to be at a bunch of meetings together, that the past, year and a half or so has just not been the same, because I don't have as many people to snark with during meetings as I did when we were on meetings all the time together. So I'm really glad we were able to catch up. And like I've said at the top, Cara is an awesome advocate and human being who is looking for work, who has many, many talents. So go check out her work. And if you have a position for her, darn it, hire her, because she's great. So, Cara Liebowitz, it's been a pleasure. Thank you a million for hopping on the show with me, and would love to do this again with you soon.
Yeah, definitely. It was a blast.
What did you think of our segment? Let me know on Facebook at Blaisin Shows. That's BLAISIN Shows. Make sure you rate, review, subscribe, and share the Blaisin Access podcast. That helps it grow. Transcripts are AI generated and are not perfect, but they will give you a baseline sense as to what I'm talking about here on the show. Tune in for more Disability Perspective tomorrow, where I will cover a press conference on ending subminimum wage for people with disabilities here in New York State. I'm Blaise Bryant. Thank you for listening to the Blaisin Access podcast, amplifying disability perspective one story at a time. Have a great day.